was about I observe, and when I see something, I'll just let it go. But now the change is about, okay, I recognize it, and I just say to myself, it's okay, everything is fine. And I remember yesterday when I went outside to have dinner. Well, in India, it's easy to get a little bit overwhelmed sometimes, because everything is like moving around and people stop in front of you. So there was this woman stopping in front of me because they
Right.
were.
It's like a mouse inside of a huge room full of rats.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I caught my mind being annoyed by the fact that the woman wasn't moving. And so I was stuck behind her. And I suddenly caught this thought and I was, oh, it's okay. I mean, it's not the first time that I get stuck because of someone in India. So, yeah. And I actually also started to take some notes after my practice. And
Okay.
this came naturally. And yeah, I'm really happy to like write observations, and I think it's a good thing.
Yes, observation is a key ingredient. But
Mm.
there's, as you mentioned, there's another key ingredient
To switch to do
to
this
make a
some kind of.
change, right?
Yeah,
Once you
yeah,
see
yeah.
what's happening, you have to make a change. Otherwise,
Mm.
what's the value in seeing?
Yeah, 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 of course. Yeah, that's the change. Like before we met, and now that I'm practicing slightly differently. And
Mm,
I also felt like joy, like while I was sitting, both like in one side because of practicing long breaths and feeling good about it for some reasons, and also feeling like a beginner once again. So I actually felt joy about it, and I was really happy because I realized that before having this 1 hour sitting in the morning, 1 hour sitting in the evening, I mean, I was also enjoying it, to have this discipline. But at some point, because I was also cycling and sometimes it wasn't always easy, I kind of felt that it was much more like a burden at some point, because it would be like, oh, I have to take 1 hour, but I might not have 1 hour. So I would try
you're
to do
right.
like, yeah, I would try to do 20, 30 minutes still, but I still have in my mind, but I need to do the 1 hour at some point. But now I'm doing 15 minutes and I really feel there's something really deep just doing 15 minutes. It's really fun. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Um, there, for some people, that in fact it has, when they call it vipassana, and
Mm.
when they talk about sitting for long periods of time, whether it's Goenka or Mahasi or whatever the name of it is, people do start to practice with a sense of obligation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's one
And
of the, yeah.
go ahead.
That's one of the big uh, flaw in the Vipassana course from Goenka when he says now that you've been doing 10 days, you have to do 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. And I'm like, okay, personally, I might do this because I'm free, I don't have any responsibilities. But for beginners, to tell them now, if you want to be liberated or to get out of suffering, if you don't do 1 hour, I mean, 2 hours in the day, it won't work. So it's kind of, telling people like being the father who is really like strict. Like it's not a happy way to tell people how to meditate.
Absolutely. That sense of obligation, in fact, is a hindrance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That sense of obligation is what keeps people going, and that it also, because they think that they're filling their obligation, that some value or some result will eventually come. In other words, once you keep paying your dues and paying your dues, you'll eventually get appointed president of the organization or something like that. And this is a very common kind of thing. In fact, the joke is when they start to say, "Oh, well, I put in 10,000 hours of meditation," or "Oh, I put in 50,000 hours of meditation,"
Mm.
and they expect it because they put in so much time, mostly through obligation, that the karma machine or something owes them something.
Yeah.
To where, in fact, nobody owes anybody anything.
Mm.
And yet they
Yeah.
do it through obligation,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so there is actually a sutta about this. It's
Mm.
sutta number 22 in the Majjhima Nikaya, and the name of the sutta is the simile of the snake.
Mm. You told about the snake
Yes,
image.
I've talked about this. Why? Because that sense of obligation is now you have been bitten by the Dhamma
Mm.
because you grabbed it by the wrong end.
Yeah.
That catching the snake by the right way and holding it by the head correctly, you get benefits immediately,
Mm.
right? So the
Yeah.
benefit is part of the Dhamma, part of the practice. But when the Dhamma becomes an obligation for paying now and getting benefits later, that's dukkha,
Mm.
putting up currency for something you don't have, hoping that you're going to get it later, which is actually the same thing as dukkha of being dissatisfied because you want something that you don't have.
Yeah.
And so the correct practice is to practice with getting the benefit of the practice right here, right now, so that then the motivation is different. Now the
Mm.
motivation is, oh, let's sit and enjoy it, rather than, oh, let's sit it and maybe someday I'll enjoy it.
Mm.
This is
Yeah.
also under the phrase of it's in the Dhammapada and it's in other places. The Dhammapada actually copied out of other places, but the teaching of the Buddha is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, with right phrasing and timing. In other
Mm.
words, when the Dhamma is taught correctly, it winds up being good in the
Mm.
beginning. But when the Dhamma is taught under a sense of obligation, kind of the way that Goenka talks about it, he actually gives people an obligation to practice.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of paradoxal things in these courses. You because he would say, okay, the technique, if the technique is not, if you don't have like fruitful thing coming in the moment, it means that you are not practicing right. But then at the end, he would say also about, the dana, the 10 para, the 10 para, no.
Paramitas.
Yes, where he say you have to feel generosity, sila, patience, etc., etc. And at some point you will get enlightened. So he puts also something like in the future, which is, I guess,
E-
not correct. Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
And all of that is upside down. All of it is backwards. That when
Yeah.
you're practicing correctly, you have joy. You
Mm.
continue to practice correctly and you have overflowing joy. And you
Yeah.
feel gratitude, you feel grateful, and you also feel generous to share with others. That's
Mm.
a natural outcome. It's not in the sense of a parami of something that has to be done in the
Mm.
form of development. It has more to do with the outcome of correct practice. So they have a
Yeah.
whole lot of stuff upside down
Mm.
because they make it
Mm.
an obligation. They say, oh, now you have to be generous. Oh,
Mm.
now you have to be grateful. Oh,
Mm.
now you have to do your duty to the Dhamma. Oh,
Yeah.
now, in fact, I think there's 10 paramis, and I don't even
Yeah.
remember
10,
them
10.
all
Yeah. Yeah. 10.
because I don't see them as obligations that I have to remember, but rather that they're actually beneficial outcomes of correct
Mm.
practice.
Yeah.
And by the way, the 10 paramis were not a teaching of the Buddha. That's somebody who made that stuff up, probably because they were experiencing that through correct practice, but they wrote it down and somebody else saw it and see it now as a list of obligations as opposed to a list of beneficial outcomes. So you continue practicing correctly, and those benefits will start to grow. Your joy will grow, not because you've set enough hours and now the karma machine owes you a debt and must make you happy. No, you're developing that happiness. You're developing that joy. You're developing that bliss. It's not going to happen to you because it's owed to you. Because you fulfilled your obligation. And yet that's how so many people see it.
Yeah, it's crazy how just a small change in the practice would just unlock something that was already here, but you just have to do this impulse of playfulness and also create it. It's true that because yesterday I watched the interview that you had with Guru Viking about magical Buddhism and the idea that you should expect in the future something, like by practicing, and this is the point of rebirth and etc. And when it's about now your job is to create. If there is no fuel, the fire won't start. So it's obvious to just create joy by practicing in a playful way and not being too much strict, to have your mind kind of rigid. So that's one of the hindrances I think most of people would get into because of, you have to practice this way 1 hour and
wanting something out of it, like with the paramis. But it's exactly the same way with precepts. That the precepts are given to children because, in fact, children, if all the children run amok, they didn't have any standards, they didn't have any belief systems at all, then it would be highly detrimental to our society. That in fact, when adults run amok, it's detrimental to the society. And so we impose rules on them from the outside. Now, any kid can know that he can generally break the rules and get away with it. If he's smart, that in fact the prisons are full of criminals, but it's full of stupid criminals, stupid, violent criminals that can't control themselves, to where the very wealthy probably stole much of the money that they've made, but they stole it in a smart way so that they didn't get caught. They were hedge fund managers or something, tweaking the books, sleight of hand, and that kind of stuff. And so it's the stupid that get caught, and the precepts are then given to where, oh no, nobody gets caught. Everybody will have to pay for it. Nobody gets away with it. That's the teaching, and that's why we need the teaching of rebirth and reincarnation, is to make sure even if you die, you're not going to get away with it. The karma machine is going to dig you up 300 years from now just to kick your ass. All right, and so that's the way that they teach it, that you can't get away with it. Wisdom comes later, and wisdom points out, when you can see what's going on, that you don't get away with it. It's not that you can get away with it, maybe, until the karma machine catches you. It's that you don't get away with it. Anytime that you hurt someone, you're going to have bad feelings about it. In fact, the bad feelings probably precede you harming someone. In some cases, the karma works backwards. that the bad feelings precede the actual deed. An example of that is the kid who is in Walmart shoplifting, and he feels bad and afraid about his shoplifting before he gets out the door and the cops catch him. He's already got the karma already there. Okay, so the problem though with believing things, believing that you can get away with it, also has the quality that they believe then that they can postpone their practice of the Dhamma and wait until the next life where it's easier to practice.
Yeah, I heard one thing, I think from Tibetan culture, that because of you don't have the proper rebirth, so you are not a monk, I mean a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni. So the idea of when you are a lay person, you practice the Dhamma, obviously, in order to expect to become a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni in the next life. In order to
but
have
that
proper...
next life can be next month, or it can be a couple of years from now. It doesn't have to be Go ahead.
And so there's a limitation, I guess, in the mind and in the probably in the practice, because I also heard that meditation is not quite is not common even in Tibetan Buddhism for lay people. You know, they would prostern and they would do mantra reciting, etc. But just sitting and practicing is not something that is quite developed actually for some reason. And I think they expect to become a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni to start real practicing, like the noble Dharma, I guess.
Well, if somebody starts to practice, maybe their mind state will be such that they'll eventually want to become a bhikkhuni or a bhikkhu.
Yeah, right.
That in fact, right now, they're not practicing because they don't want to become a bhikkhu. They would rather go out and carouse or argue or drink or follow their sensual desires.
Yeah. Or simply because they have responsibilities also.
That's one of the really interesting side things about Christianity, is that Christianity allows the Christians to go carouse, to have Christian nationalism, to hate, to be racial, and all of that because they can get forgiven for it. And so because of forgiveness is there, they think that they can get away with it without recognizing, no, your racism is harming you right now. It's making you angry and uptight when you could be happy and joyful, no matter what color the skin is of somebody that's in the room with you.
And I guess this in America is so obvious. Like with all the Christians, they are like really radical about Mexicans, for instance. And when you see them that they are Christian and they talk about God and they are like heavily, how do you say this, armed with weapons, it's kind of a funny way to say, yeah, I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus and God bless us.
Right. And that's correct. They need the God because they need the God to bless them and forgive them for all of their crap. And they feel bad about their crap. That's why they want God to forgive them. Okay? And so it's the same thing exactly with those who believe in rebirth and reincarnation. Oh, I'm willing to suffer now, pay my dues now, because I can get a future benefit, a future reward later. And this is what the Buddha said was all upside down, whether it's Christianity or Hindu or Islam or whatever the religion, it's always pay now, suffer now, and get benefit later. And the Buddha figured that out, and he says, oh, wait a minute, no, we've got to do it now. And we get the benefit of doing it now, right now. The benefits are here now.
I actually realized that I kind of got trapped in this idea of later, in the future, because of, I guess you would say, Western Buddhism. You practice, and there's this idea of enlightenment that would come later because of a lot of practice and etc. Even though I would still feel the result of my practice, to be aware of my thought, of my body, but I would still expect this light coming out of me. I mean, to make it like as a
Mm-hmm.
joke. But now I realize that because of what you said also in this interview about moment to moment, and I could feel this actually, this change of moment to moment with the mind, like, oh, okay, there's a moment. Let's try to be joyful at this moment, and let's try to keep it for a long time period, And
Mm-hmm.
suddenly I would do something else, and I would feel like, oh, there's a change again. Let's try to keep it back to,
Yeah,
like the
let's start
awareness.
again.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And to prolong this moment to moment to moment to etc. All I know.
Right. That's exactly what is meant by applied and sustained thought. Let's apply the mind to the Dhamma. Let's apply the mind to the wholesome. Let's apply the mind to the joyful. And once we apply the mind to it, let's sustain it. And when we lose it, never mind, start again, apply the mind, and then learn to sustain it. And it's a practice that we practice over and over again. And the benefits is that the application comes easier, the application comes quicker, the sustaining lasts longer, and the sustaining is easier because of the skills developed, but it's always applied and sustained thought, to apply the mind to the wholesome and sustain it that way, and the joy will build.
Yeah.
This is so simple, but we've got, what, billions of people who cannot grasp that simple concept.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate because it's really just here. Yeah. But I still have some question about the practice, because related to the Anapanasati Sutta, when the Buddha teaches first long breath, but then he also teach about short breath to try to, I guess, develop different kind of awareness in the body and in the mind. So this
Okay.
is.
Here's the thing, then. The answer to the short breath is very simple. Sometimes we get dull. Sometimes we get tired. Sometimes we don't breathe well. An example of that is climbing the stairs of a tall building, or climbing up a mountain, or running, that the body naturally will start to heave. It'll start to breathe strongly in order to become oxygenated. We can actually call it out of breath, when in fact it's not. We're breathing. We're not out of breathing. We're out of oxygen. That's why we're breathing like that. Okay, so there are times and opportunities to where you would want to practice short breathing intentionally.
Okay.
And it will energize the body. There is a term called hyper something, hyperventilating.
Yeah.
But you become lightheaded. Well, if you breathe long correctly, you'll get a little bit of hyperventilation, because your body is full of oxygen.
Is that when you can feel vibrations also? Because that's something that I would
That's
feel.
exactly what we're talking about. Exactly. The Kundalini rising, or cold chills, or goosebumps, and all of that kind of stuff happens when we're breathing well.
Okay.
And so you have two ways of breathing well. The one that's long lasting is the long, deep, easy breathing. But when we get out of breath because of forgetfulness, or activities, or dull, long meditations, starting to breathe easy and quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you'll begin to get lightheaded again, because the the oxygen is now circulating in the body again. And then you can go back to the long, easy breathing. But the entire point of either breathing short intentionally or breathing long intentionally is to know the body and to relax the body.
Yeah.
And so it's both relaxing. And yet I've heard people say, oh, I've done that long breath and it's so tiring. Well, you're working at it too hard.
Yeah, I could feel the connection between the relaxation of the body and the mind, but I also would feel when I try too hard, I would say, with long breaths, that excitement, agitation would arise. And so I would have to get back on, I guess, a gentle long breath to keep it down, you know. And what else? And yeah, I actually try to concentrate about trying to relax as much possible my body, because I still have some tension rising once in a while, but I'm okay with it. You know, it's not like I'm craving about getting this.
When you recognize the tension, the thing to do is imagine that you're actually breathing into that area. Put some air into that area and let that tension kind of break up and melt away.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I would remind myself, it's, I guess, also apart from the teaching of the Buddha in the Anapanasati Sutta, is when he said you breathe in and you experience the body, and you breathe out, you experience the body. So I would kind of, in some ways, when I feel tensions, I would just try to feel all my body breathing. I don't know how to explain it, but
yes, I do. I understand.
Yeah, you know, from the feet to the head, because usually the legs would be the part that are less sensitive, you know, and so I would try to feel my legs being like a lungs, let's say, like this. So I mean, breathing, you know. So yeah, and but also realize that too much relaxation create laxity, you know. When I would try to be as much relaxed, and suddenly I feel like, oh wait, I lost my awareness. Like, okay, let's go back again because I'm too relaxed. So I kind of as these experiences about, okay, this is too much excitement, this is laxity. Oh, yeah.
Well, remember also that not only are you relaxing the mind or body, but you're relaxing your attitude.
Yeah.
And the attitude is relaxing into the sense of everything is already okay. And that I can move from object to object within. You see, people will take a particular object in some meditation forms, where we're actually moving the object of meditation around intentionally. We move it from the mind, the attitude, the thoughts, move it to the way we feel, move it to the body, the way the body's breathing, the way that the body is responding, what the body feels, and relaxing the body. And so we've got all of these various meditation objects, and we can move from one to the other, but not in a particular order, but rather one by one as they occur.
Yeah.
And always being gentle on yourself, always being nurturing, rather than, darn it, I did it wrong that time. Because that builds up tension again.
And I have also another question that's more about unwholesome thoughts and wholesome thoughts, because I realize that sometimes I have those loop thoughts, you know, some situation. Like, for instance, in the beginning, I would think about us together talking, you know, I would project myself talking about what we're talking right now. And this would kind of have this loop, you know, about talking about Buddhism. And I know that I have this tendency for many years to project myself in some situation. Usually it would be like, let's say, dangerous situation where I'm attacked, because I guess it's linked also with some experience that I had in my past. And usually
Right. So
I
now
would,
you're going to start projecting yourself into the Dhamma,
yeah, that's the
having
thing that,
conversations about the Dhamma, having
yeah,
conversations about how nice and easy everything is.
yeah. That's because, so I was thinking about, okay, but I have those loop coming again and again. Is it wholesome? But it's about the Dharma, So I'm like, well, I guess it's fine. It's, you know,
Yes,
and
it's
and
very
I would,
wholesome. In fact, that's an important part. This is what is meant by entering the stream.
mm,
That a lot of people will sit on the side of the Dhamma and worry or fidget or
mm,
fight or whatever. But entering the stream of the Dhamma means that now you're immersed in it. Everywhere you look, there's nothing but Dhamma,
mm,
that you're in
yeah,
it now.
mm,
And so having Dhamma on the mind, talking to other people about it, listening to other people about it, remembering conversations that you had with your teacher about it, reading
mm,
books and scriptures is a good thing to do when it's about the Dhamma. And
mm,
then teaching the Dhamma, talking and sharing it with others. All five of these things actually have value of keeping us in the Dhamma.
mm,
We become enthusiastic about the Dhamma. We don't want to think about anything else about it. And
yeah,
eventually we take great delight in the Dhamma.
mm,
We take great delight in our whole lives because our whole life is full of Dhamma.
mm,
This is what is meant by the Sotapan, the one who is
mm,
in it.
mm,
And yet in Western mentality, they have the idea that, oh, it had to do with some event. Oh, I had this imagination or I had that feeling, and now I'm a Sotapan. And that's completely wrong. That's looking for events. It's looking for special occasions. It's looking for those one-time shots. And then people want to have that experience again.
mm,
Rather than when you're in the Dhamma, that, oh, yeah, that was a nice experience, just one after another. I'll have another, and please. I'll have another experience now. I don't have to contemplate how good that experience was. It didn't mean a thing. Let's have some more. That's what the Sotapan is all about, is really, really in the Dhamma with nothing else to do but Dhamma.
mm, yeah, okay. So let's say these are wholesome thoughts, when
Yes, all wholesome Dhamma, nothing but wholesome Dhamma.
yeah,
And when we
yeah,
come
it's fine
out of the
because,
Dhamma, we recognize it and you come right back in.
yeah, yeah, because I've been, most of the books that I've been reading lately are about Dharma teaching, especially Mahayana teaching. And yesterday I would have like those talking, but without anyone special, just me and me, I guess,
Hmm.
about Mahayana, Theravada, because I'm both interested in different schools. I think they are both
They're not
interesting
different
things.
schools, they're different locations. The
Yeah,
first grade is in the little white schoolhouse. The first grade is in the big university school. It's all Dhamma everywhere. The
yeah.
is only a difference in location. There is no difference between Theravada Buddhism and Thai Buddhism. What the difference is Theravada or Thai culture and
Mm.
Tibetan culture.
Yeah.
And we don't need
Okay.
culture. What we need is Dhamma.
Mm. Yeah.
That whenever you think about culture, the Tibetan culture, you think about mandalas and thangkas and tulku and the robes that they wear and all of that. But none of that's important. What's really important is that it's Dhamma. Now remember
Mm.
that Tibet was Tibet centuries before it was Tibetan Buddhism.
Mm.
And so Tibet was already Tibet, and Buddhism came in And a lot of people got into Buddhism, but they were already Tibet. They were already Tibetan. They were born Tibetan, and then they become Buddhist. Okay, so this is the way of looking at it, is that really Buddhist, the teaching of the Buddha is exactly the same, no matter what country it's practiced in. The differences is in the culture, not in the actual practice of the teaching of the Buddha, which is all dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. When you see that you're in dukkha, come right back out of it.
Yeah, I wrote this dukkha, dukkha, nirodha, and I wrote, what did I wrote? About, wait, what did I wrote? Okay, so anapanasati, unifying body and mind again and again. Dukkha, dukkha, nirodha, catching unwholesome and switching to wholesome again and again, gladdening the mind. Yeah, that's something that I kind of try to process.
Now that's true in Tibetan Buddhism. That's true in Zen. The Zen masters will tell the Zen students, you're already enlightened, just sit. Don't sit to get something. You're not going to get anything by sitting. Just enjoy it. Just sit. You're already enlightened. And so Zen and Tibetan and Theravada is really the same. It's the teaching of the Buddha.
Of course.
But sometimes some people allow their culture to interfere with the teaching of the Buddha.
I'm glad, because I've been reading a lot of Dharma books, obviously in English, and I'm aware of the translations sometimes can create confusions,
Right.
kind of.
That was because the translators were confused.
Yeah, that's what I heard in one of the interview. And because about anapanasati or shamatha, it's always about concentrations, you have to concentrate.
Actually, we misunderstand that word concentration. If you can understand the word concentration actually means to repeat. It's not about concentration. It means, can you come back and do it again? Can you repeat it? Can you repeat it? And yet most people, when they think of concentration, they talk about getting really tight. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of when I'm practicing my music, I feel like, okay, I start and I'm concentrated about the score that I'm playing, and suddenly my mind would just, get away, and I no, come back on the shit, and try practicing and just relax. And then I would practice on and on the same bar, trying to get better. And then I would feel tension rising because maybe getting tired, and okay, let's go back, or maybe let's take a break and come back again.
Exactly. So, take a break and come back. Never mind, start again. Concentration are the ones who, even when they get tired and lose focus, they still strain and work at it rather than making it easy. So I'm not a big fan on the word concentration.
Yeah, that's why I wrote like stabilization, serenity, unifying. I think these three words are kind of create like a panel of what would be the real practice to stabilize and then to unify and to get to a point where you feel serene about sitting.
Stability has to do with relaxation. That tension is not stability. An example of that is trying to, two people are fighting over something and trying to take it. Both of them have a hold of it, but that's not serenity. They're still pulling on it. Can you just hold it without struggling on it? That's the serenity. And so if you can take the struggle out of your practice, that's the whole point. And concentration is the word that people use to create that struggle.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So let's finish now. and come back and we'll talk again.
Yeah. Okay. Just one last thing. I'm looking to read a book from Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Am I saying
Okay.
right? And it's mindfulness with breathing. So it's about anapanasati. Would you would you say that I could read it, or should I just wait, just practicing what I'm doing right now, or should I?
One of the things that I mention is that now that you already know how to practice correctly, I wouldn't spend a lot of time reading books. I would spend time, the way that I talk about it is, read the book between your ears.
Oh yeah, right. Okay.
All
It's
right.
just that I know that even in the teaching of the Buddha, after long breaths, short breaths, you have also other steps, which
But they're
I
not
don't want to.
steps. They're not
No, no,
steps.
not steps. Sorry, yeah, it's the confusion that we have.
I know.
Yeah,
We use the word step when it's not a step. It's one by
yeah,
one as they occur.
yeah, one by one. Yeah. So that's why I'm interested in this, because I already been reading one book from Bhikkhu Buddhadasa about anapanasati and all the like the five aggregates, the different factors with rapture, joy, and etc. And yeah, I'm just curious about these things, because I might have experienced some, but I wouldn't be sure because it's just words, and I cannot really be sure. I mean, I don't know. Just curious about what I'm doing, and put
Don't be
words.
serious. Be joyful.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And by the way, on our website, on Open Sangha Foundation, is almost every book in
Yeah,
English that Bhikkhu
yeah.
Buddhadasa has done. So you
Yeah,
can go to the.
I found the Google thing. Yeah.
Oh, even Google will find Open Sangha Foundation's versions of the books. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking about Google Drive, not Google Drive with all the files. But I found this
Yes, our
on
Google.
the Discord,
Mhm.
on the Discord channel. I found the link.
Great. All right. Well, we've got them
Okay.
all. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you later, Alex.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day. Enjoy.
Yes,
Enjoy.
you too.